There are members of the political opposition who think they are operating under normal circumstances. They believe this is a multi-party dispensation.
Isn't the opposition aware of these realities? And shouldn't the style of opposition be shaped around these conversations and realities?
Most people want to take over power, but they are not reading Museveni enough.
One of the biggest discussions has been the debate on whether this anti-corruption crusade is pure or it's just political fights.
President Museveni, he's not delusional. One of the things that was supposed to be protected was the age limit, term limits, and all these are major questions.
That's true.
They must be protected.
They were locked in the original report.
Now the term limit was not locked.
Okay.
For us, we think we can challenge political power through elections, but elections are decided by three things. One is the military, who is in charge of the security forces. Two is money. Three, who controls the electoral commission.
Is the news moving too fast for you to keep up, or worse? Do you feel like you're getting the headlines but missing the real stories?
Welcome to Checkmate 256. This is where we slow down the week's chaos for you. We don't just report what is happening in Uganda, but we also analyze why it is happening and what that means for your life.
So if you're tired of being checked by the news and you are ready to make your own move, hit the subscribe button, turn on the notifications and share with the friends who need to stay informed. Welcome to the game. This is the Checkmate 256.
Hello everyone, welcome to yet another episode of the Checkmate 256, where we summarize the news that is happening in Uganda, the Pearl of Africa, and we give you perspectives on why it is happening and the effect thereof. And we do that with several notable faces in Uganda who can authoritatively speak about some of the things that make news in Uganda, or at least the principles behind those news stories. In this week, we want to talk about, I think, around 5 or 6 stories, but some will be abridged and others combined. But specifically, we're talking about the anti-corruption and politics and discussing whether this crusade that we are seeing is either indeed a true cause on anti-corruption or just politics, with some speaking about selective prosecution of some and leaving others. I will tell you about the story of Chris Obore and the other parliamentary staff. We'll also tell you about the judiciary on trial, as we still have political prisoners on remand since 2021, the story of Wasswa Mufumbiro, Lukwago's bail handling, comments from Besigye's trial, Muwanga Kivumbi getting bail. We'll get perspective into that. We'll also talk about the media strangling on the story of NMG, and we have a very notable gentleman that is a jack of all trades and a master of all to tell us about that. And also talk about the red era of abductions and illegal arrests, reference from Lukwago, Kalyegira, Matembe, Tabz, etc., and the people who have been taken and later produced, claiming torture or visibly tortured, and people boasting that they have been tortured. The conversations that is in the newsrooms and even outside on the lips of very many Ugandans as far as illegal detentions, and even the side of government saying that there's no such a thing as an illegal arrest. We will talk about that. And we'll also talk about the steep slope of the rule of law and rising impunity. And in that, we'll also talk about, of course, we'll put our guest on the spot as far as the transition question is concerned and how that is likely to go. And finally, we'll hear his comments about the Besigye trial analysis and where it is likely to all end. Before we start, we want to make a notable mention and on a sad note, and condole with everyone that lost their loved one in the Bobby Trading Center accident at Omoro District, where there was a bus tragedy colliding with a trailer. It's really, really unfortunate. I personally think that these statistics for 15 people dying every day in Uganda is just, it's bad. And I think it's both systemic failure and also indiscipline of us, the road users, a combination that has led to very unfortunate deaths, left orphans and widows and widowers and crying mothers and fathers. Something needs to be done, but we take time before we begin to condole with everyone that lost their loved one in that carnage. This is the Checkmate 256, and to do that with me today here is the one and only Dr. soon-to-be Sulaiman Kakaire, For those who are seeing his picture for the first time, I don't know where you've been, but Kakaire is a prominent Ugandan journalist, lawyer, political analyst, researcher, etc. I'm privileged to call him a brother and a good friend. I want to tell you that in our class, if anyone thought who would become a doctor, your face and name would come, and I'm not surprised that you took that route. For people who have met Kakaire from the legal circles at Maiza, his previous life as at the Observer, his short stint at ANT as the spokesperson. You should tell us about that also. But welcome for the Checkmate. I know it's your debut appearance. We're glad to have you. You can say hi to our viewers and we kickstart.
Thank you. Thank you, Harry, for hosting me. I'm glad to be here. A great... Is it still a morning? It's afternoon. And it depends on how when someone catches up and where people are. Yeah. Those watching live, greetings to everyone. I'd given up on talk shows. I don't know how many calls I received from the mainstream legacy houses, media houses calling me, and I feel like conversations are not well structured. You go for a conversation and
you're five in studio.
You have to take again another 15 minutes of educating the people you are with in studio, and where it seems like it's not conscientization, and then you end up in making noise, and the audience loses. I believe these are very good initiatives where people can have serious conversations, structured conversations, and conversations that don't merely end up in the casual conversation, but at least you draw out particular things for action, depending on wherever someone stands. I'm glad to be here, and thank you for this kind of initiative. I followed Checkmate several times. I've listened in to your talk shows. You're really doing very great work.
Thank you, sir.
So glad to be here this morning. You described me as someone who is in constant movement.
I'm all over.
I'm all over.
Yes,
and I take
at
this.
The same time.
I take this from Che Guevara, who says that revolutionaries are always on the move. On the move, you have to constantly evolve.
I hear you.
And this process, my career transitions have helped me to keep knowing what is happening there. When I was working with Semakade and Legal Brains Trust, it gave me an opportunity to read the civil society space. I understand it.
Full understanding.
When I was full-time observer political writer as a journalist, it helped me to expose me to the corridors of power. Now, whenever people have a confrontation, they end up in the judiciary. So my legal career as well helps me understand what are the limitations in case me and you disagree and we say our arbiter is going to be a court. It helps me understand what are its limitations, what its abilities, and how it works. Then lastly, every conversation around power in Uganda ends up on the constitution, because it's the normative framework that defines how power is supplied, how power is distributed, how it is supposed to be utilized. Now, the conversations, unfortunately, is limited to only lawyers. So legal background helps me to understand that, and being a practicing attorney helps me to have also a bird's eye view of it. Then lastly, academia, they are the people who are interpreting society. So that is it. And then my experience as a politician, also you try to manage society. So I have a broad understanding. But now I prefer I'm more of a normal citizen, reading things from a particular vantage point.
I get you.
Yes.
Let me ask you something, and this just to help. I was having a conversation with someone yesterday, and they were just commenting about the Checkmate and the civil space and the newsrooms in Uganda. And they were discussing how it's very surprising that the comments online and in the different platforms depict a population that is not satisfied, scared, poor. They're just not happy with the status quo. But then also the other perspective is that they are very unsure of the alternative if the status quo changes. The question I wanted to put to you is your analysis of the opposition in light of your involvement in the setup and also the running of the of ANT and your role there, your general perspective to give people that why is that narrative in the conversations as people speak about power in Uganda?
So you want me to draw what are its limitations and
Yes.
Unfortunately or fortunately I've been privy to some of the most strategic meetings, engagements in the political position for quite some time at the highest level. And most of the times I say this with some kind of arrogancy that I can speak to, because I remember my first time I was a member, I was one of the main delegates at the delegates conference, which received Olalotun as a president. By that time, I was the chairperson UPC Makere chapter. When I drifted,
That was in the first degree.
in the first degree.
Yes.
So when I ended up also the other side, I was working at the Observer, but I was an insider at the FDC. At some point, I was a person who is in charge of collection of even DR forms in 1 or 2 elections. It gave me also a privilege to have insider knowledge of the FDC.
I hear you.
When the FDC now parted ways with some of its moderates, I became a spokesperson in ANT.
I hear you.
And but even throughout all
You're
these
describing them
my
as moderates.
engagements,
I've noted that.
yes, as moderates, they are not so radical in their thinking about some issues. In 2001 election, I was majorly a spokesperson of the ENT, but I also end up on the legal team of the Honorable Chagulanyi. Nope. And during that process, I closely worked with victims of electoral violence. So I also got a very broad understanding of the NOP, its operations.
Structures and operations.
In the recent 2 years, I also worked, I was the main brain behind the legislation of the DF.
Okay.
I was the National Legal Advisor. I know from beginning to end
How it started,
its
yes.
registration. Although I offered my technical knowledge, I was not more into the
running
the
of,
main
yes,
politics.
the political
but
part.
those who know me and they read their policy documents,
They will see
Kakaile
Sulaiman.
speaking and talking. So that access helped me to understand. And I will tell you one thing. There are reasons that are both agents-related problems, that there are problems that are internal to the opposition, and there are also problems that are externally or exogenous or manufactured by the conditions within which they are operating. Because you cannot work outside conditions.
That's true.
Your limitations, abilities, capacity can go in delivering whatever you set out to do based on the conditions under which you're operating. Now, the context, and this context is very critical.
Please.
There are members of the political opposition who think they are operating under normal circumstances, so they take business as usual.
Yes.
So, normal circumstances, they believe this is a multi-party dispensation. So, they know you draw out a policy platform, you draw out a program of activities, they draw out, we are going to participate in an election. It's business as usual.
As on paper.
Now, there is a particular group that thinks that way. Then there is another group that thinks that actually things are not normal.
They are
completely different. And let me give an explanation to it. Uganda's political culture, unfortunately or fortunately, for some of the people who know, they keep switching from it and thinking they can operate outside. But this is the modern state by its nature is a violent state. if you go into the reading of its history, its origin, it's defined by and shaped by violence. Even when you look at the modern Uganda itself, it's defined, it's a
product of violence.
It's a product of violence. Its precursor is the one pushing out of the Muslims out of Uganda, pushing the Catholics out of the consensus, and eventually just bring them in slowly. It happens that this is a period which takes over 40, 50 years to bring them. Then the land disenfranchisement, which also goes with the defining the new movements of the Abataka movement. All that kind of history cannot be abandoned. But one of the major players has been the military, in and through.
I hear you.
In and through. But the contemporary moment you can go to say the military now takes a more center stage, it is 1966.
Okay.
When the climax happens.
I hear you.
For you guys at law school, you read it as that is the moment now when it's endorsed in the constitutional dispensation of Uganda. And indeed, when you look at all our entire constitutional history, is littered with attempts to deal with the military. But for us, again, me taking on another hat from political theory, we read that this was just a manifestation. But it has been happening. So, in 1966, when now the military takes center stage, you look at now the players. The players who are saying that let's go back to the people, and those who are going back, who are saying that no, please, the military has to play a critical role. A major conversation happens when now a big section of Ugandans find themselves in exile under the UNLF.
Yes.
UNLF group, most of these Ugandans who had run away from Amin's government, who had been forced into exile, now they have to involve themselves in a conversation. There were two major groups. I've mentioned this several times, but few people pay attention to it. And I feel like it's something which is ignored in our political discourse.
In the history,
in our history. Now, these two groups, and it will answer everything that we are going to discuss today. And even what you started with and lasted with as transition, it's the center of it. Now, those two groups, there was a group which was saying that let's get power. After we've got power, we go back to the people.
Yes, hand over back to the people.
That group was led by the groups, the likes of Professor Dan Nabdere. Another group was saying that the military is very important and power must be run and managed by the military. That group had two groups, major groups. It had the Chikos Malum. Chikos Malum, this was the military wing of Obote, of the UPC, led by Ojok, the Muwangas and others. But obviously this was the external, the group of the military wing of the UPC. Then you had the other group to it. It was the Fronasa, with the Fronasa which had the Changombe. Fortunately, Mamdan now has put to paper they are thinking as the Changombe group, and eventually, when I read Slow Poison, I felt like they have disintegrated. But the Nabdere put out his stuff. There is a monograph called "The New Military Dictators of Uganda," and indeed he gives us hints on what is likely to happen under Museveni and who is Museveni. Any person who would want to read Professor Nabdere to understand who Museveni is. So he writes and gives us a picture that in and through, President Museveni was opposed to say the military is not a major player. And obviously that is also predated by his student days. He read Fanon, although I disagree with him, his reading of Fanon.
His interpretation
of Fanon. But that is a story for another day. We can have another conversation, because I've seen many people misinterpret Fanon and appropriate him in ways that are not Fanonian. So, President Museveni, he's not delusional. He comes participates in the 1980 election. Eventually, we hold the election, but that election, you know very well, it was managed by the military commission. Although we had other groups that were supposed to manage the election, you had even an electoral commission, but the military commission was the overall runner. President Museveni is defeated in that election. Now, two views emerge. Those who have been defeated in election, those who say we are going to the bush. Eventually, there was a convergence of thinking that people had to go to the bush because you can't clear some things without going to the bush. That's how they thought about it. Then Abdele forms what they call UNLF-AD.
Okay.
UNLF-AD, they start even to operate. That's where people like Shefali, Sejusa, they were originally part of that group. They were also at some point part of UNLF-AD.
We would call them the non-military activists.
Now, Professor Abdele reaches a point and they disintegrate and say, no, going to the bush, we have again caused a very serious problem at the countryside. It will lead to the killing of other people. What does Museveni do? He writes an essay called Essays of Resistance. And discusses three elements, mechanism of taking power. One, can you take power through an election? Can you take power through an insurrection? Or it must be a protracted struggle guerrilla war. And he justifies the guerrilla war. Most people want to take over power, but they are not reading Museveni enough. He makes a justification, loses the election, mobilizes, reintegrates the forces. He takes on some people who were previously part of DP, who are now which he disintegrates into UFF, UFM, and FEDEM, and integrates them in the NRM. Then you have another group of UNLF-AD, and he defines a consensus. But you know there are many battles Museveni is involved in. Although most of the times Uganda think about Museveni and separate him from the politics that makes him. He deals with many questions. But in dealing with his own questions, he integrates forces that will legitimate the movement. That's how he brings on the Ankole conservatives, he brings on the Buganda conservatives, he brings on some groups of the Catholics, he brings on the groups of the other forces. So when they go to the bush, they make a justification, write a 10-point program, but that is basically for PR.
I hear you.
It's for PR. That, okay, other people who are looking at us, when we are in the bush,
they shouldn't call us just another force. That wants power.
Because you can go back to the 10-point program, how it came. It was orchestrated and developed. But that is politics we cannot discuss now.
That's true.
But I want to come to where we are.
Yes,
so when they take over power, these conversations are brought back on board. There are those who are rushing. Oh my God, we've taken over power. We have to do ABC. But the man is managing power. Even with donors, he tells them what I want to do. Now, because President Museveni didn't take power through civil means, he has to sustain himself in power. We have to read the international currents of the Cold War. He buys in through the right. He was obviously getting some support from the left. That's how they end up with some Islamic names and also many Marxist theologians and several others. So Marxist enthusiasts, not theologians. So in buying in, he's accepted by the West through implementation of what we call the Economic Recovery Program.
Yes.
How Uganda ends up as a neoliberal state. But at the same time, that neoliberal program, it's largely also heavily backed by the military. So there is so much support of the military. President Museveni is not naive. So that's how he delays to set up the Constitutional Commission. When he sets up the Constitutional Commission, it delays to give a report. And you know the problems that happen to the people who were on the commission. Some people even end up in bomb blast and others, and even the disagreements around the commission itself.
Yeah.
So this, what we are calling the constitutional dispensation, is an agreement of Ugandans. But for the person who is now going to honor and protect this agreement, which is the constitutional framework, is not believing in whatever we've agreed upon. That's why many things that are agreed upon in that constitution don't end up in the document. Others which end up in the document have to be decided by the military high command.
Yes.
Like, for instance, one of the things that was supposed to be protected was the age limit. Things like
term limits,
and all these are major questions.
That's true.
They must be protected.
They were locked in the original report.
Now the term limit was not locked.
Okay.
Miriam Matembe has since given us a story why it was not locked. People need to read her book. She's arrested. People need to read her book. Why? Milia. And for the Milias, I see referencing each other, my brother, my sister. Museveni references as my sister. Milia references Museveni as my brother.
Yes.
I think they need to, people need to understand. And even Milia needs to understand that the person is referencing as my brother will never take her as my brother, because she's letting the cat out of the bag in many ways. She gave an interesting interview to the Observer of why didn't they lock the term limit.
The term limit, yes. They
had a meeting with the president. Remember, the Constitutional Commission has moved across the country.
Yes. Gathering ideas from,
Now, the members of the commission end up in a meeting with the president. And the president advises them, please don't lock it up.
Oh, yes, I remember that part. Yes.
Are we still in the search for the national consensus, like Odoki writes in his book?
I hear you.
There was no search for the national consensus. Because at the end of, exactly, there is so much that goes under the bridge that misses people's attention. So in that very constitution, there were particular things that were advised that, okay, the question of the military was discussed extensively. I have the Constitutional Commission report. A discussion happens extensively, and it's even reproduced in our preamble. We recalling our history is why this and this and this and this. Uganda has been defined by lack of political stability. How do we guarantee it? There must be peaceful, democratic transition of power. 2, because we've already centered it as the major source of stability, how do we guarantee it?
That it's not
you rule for 2 terms and leave.
You just leave.
Exactly. Now, President Museveni, they also advise that the role of the military, they say it must be subordinate to civilian authority. The first time that is put to test, obviously when we move after doing that, the constitution is reported, but let's analyze who is composing the Uganda Constitutional Commission. It had 7 military serving officers. Kalyegira was part of it, Fred Bogere, Serwanga Rwanga. You look.
So even when you're giving civilian power,
even the Milias, there were civilians, but they had been part of NRA.
True.
These were cadres. So even when you're giving civilian power, the victors, which is the military, is commandeering.
The choir masters.
When they come up with a report, who are the people debating it? It was the Noble Mayombos, the late Noble Mayombos, the Besigye, the Otafires, and the others.
I hear you.
They were the leading voices. Nabudere led the group, together with Semo Gerere, of the other view of the constitution.
Okay.
That was the CA group. You need to read their history. You know, when people are reading these things, they forget there is a group of Ugandans which was not agreeable to this.
That had a contrary
and their viewpoint has increasingly, over time,
been justified and vindicated. The Rwanyalas go to court and challenge even the way the CA elections was conducted. We end up with a CA that debates that constitution. It gives it to us, but that military was represented.
The first time the question of the military is discussed, it happens, but before I reach that point, let me tell you that, so what you see as the NRMA regime was negotiated by two fronts, the civil-military relations. The military accepted that we cannot rule without the civilians.
The people, yes.
The civilians accepted that you will not have peace without the military. Now, over time, that continuum, which defines both forces, the push on the continuum, it has been tilting in favor of the military.
I hear you.
And this is how I'm going to show you.
And the people can feel the change.
People can, yes.
Yes.
The politics of Uganda, it reached a time in our political culture, the attitudes and behaviors, where people now started to say, but the man is not aggressive.
Yes.
We need the military man. We need the military. Increasingly, the political culture was tied with being military, but having military background
as a representation of power.
As a representation of power. Now, the first time it is taken to the courts in 1997, Kanyehamba also endorses the military. He says Major General Tinyefunza cannot leave the military without endorsement of high command. Tinyefunza one. For him, Kanyehamba would understand. He's thinking that maybe this is a government that we need to protect the state institution without taking time to understand who's military.
Without knowing the principle.
For them, they were protecting the military.
Yes.
Because when you find it anywhere, I would agree with some of his points that a high-ranking military officer cannot just leave because you need to protect the military. But they had not taken time to understand who's military. So the Kanyehambas endorse it after a Ugandan tender has told them, you know, forcing this man to continue serving when it will amount to servitude and what have you. And you know what happened to Ugandan Tende? He was never promoted even after 20 years, after that constitutional petition. Ugandan Tende, by the way, just recently retired. He retired where? At the Constitutional Court.
And his speech at the retirement summarizes everything you just said.
Yeah. So when I have not read his speech, but I had an interaction with him. I was looking for an old friend of him, Professor Nayenga, and we had snippets of but we did go in deep. So in 1997, there was open endorsement of the military.
Military one, civilian nil.
The second time the military now comes to decide, another thing is opened. The Besigye comes as an military insider. They start to realize that what we've been working for is this thing for Museveni. He advises his colleagues, they sit. The military people, they are still attending, in and through, attending all the conversations. The first time now the constitution itself is called into question, which is the removal of term limits. The members convening at Chankwanzi, the meeting in Chankwanzi, some military officers say this is not proper. It ends up, the decision is taken by the military high command on term limits.
Wow.
Who are the representatives of the military in parliament? The kind of Fred Bogere, the Mugisha Muntus. When they disagree, Fred Bogere, you can read his story in the Observer. He's dropped. Mugisha Muntu, that was the end of the road for him. Tumukunde, Henry Tumukunde, who was part of, who said he is not ready and gave some views contradicting that decision, is forced to resign. Now, the second time opportunity comes for Kanyehamba, writing an opinion on Tumukunde. And he says, you know what? We have even to revisit.
That's Senator Tumukunde versus AG.
AG. When he was brigadier. And we have to revisit. By the way, 2009.
Yes.
I remember I was in my second year at university. And we had, even at law school, they organized a talk around it after that decision. And the Kanyehamba actually came to law school. I remember them disagreeing with Oloka and saying, no, you see, this and pinning him on it. which I find unfair that for all the time, Kanyehamba was such an interesting man. Unfortunately, he's gone. But one of the things I kept on telling my friends about him, I at some point I was very close to him, picking articles, things from him to be published in the Observer. But I kept on telling my friends that one of the things I didn't like about him, he never owned up to that history. And as a scholar, because Kanyehamba was not just a mere jurist, but this was a legal legal scholar. Sure. He needed to write that history and write a book and to vindicate himself, just like he wrote when it came to presidential election petitions.
Yes, I hear you.
Kanyehamba says Uganda has to revisit the representation of the military in parliament.
Because just to pause you on that point, I have never looked at it that way in light of the discussion of having the UPDF as part of parliament. Now it gives a fresh perspective of that military versus civilian. I still want control of this thing.
The military now, and the climax is coming. So the military,
in a minute or two, so that
takes over the judiciary. The judiciary gives up. Kanyehamba, eventually, after the 2009 decision, he loses everything.
Yeah.
But obviously it was coming after also a continuous falling out since the 2006 petition.
Yeah, the petition, yes.
But even the discussion happening in 2001, 2006 petitions and other important electoral disputes like the one of Garuga Msinguza and Mama Mbabazi, the military is highly blamed for deciding what happens in elections.
Which are central of this constitution that we are, yes.
Besigye gave an important statement. He was appearing on a talk show on, I think, the one of Norman. What is Norman's thing? Called Dig Talk.
Yes.
And he said, unfortunately, for us, we think we can challenge political power through elections. But elections are decided by three things. One is the military, who is in charge of the security forces. Two is money. Three, who controls the electoral commission.
Wow.
And that was important. Then two, I want us now to come to the conversation around, again, the second time now the military is called in.
Please.
It comes when it comes to age limit. Why is age limit important? It's the last shock absorber to managing.
Because time limits are gone. Now the only
age limit. Age limit, which it's unfortunate that the Supreme Court never read it as a structure.
You've even skipped the Black Mambas attacking court as a representation of what you're talking about.
All those were just manifestations and symptoms.
The principle, yes.
Of the principle. Because the principle, why are they just symptomic? The Black Mamba is occupying court because Besigye has come. Okay. But I've already told you Besigye has started the conversation in 2009, in 1999. So in 2017, when Parliament is now debating, can we remove age limit? It came as a mere conversation. Age limit conversation starts. The man himself, who's the direct beneficiary of it, was President Museveni. Because after that election, if they had not removed, President Museveni would not be a president by now.
Yeah.
Because he could have clocked 75. And now, right now, we know who was the winner. When Parliament, after gathering views across the country, Ugandans were opposed to it, and Parliament is debating it, who comes in to decide the outcome?
The military.
The military came and beaten and thrashed MPs.
Everyone remembers.
How much is going to happen for you to know that we are not in
someone is in charge, yes.
But we have limited spaces like this, Kakaira. I can appear here and talk and discuss and give a representation like as if this is a democratic dispensation, but it's not. If my talk is in Luganda or Rusoga and is going to be heard by millions of people, it will not be allowed.
I hear you.
But it can be allowed if I'm in a conversation with an elite who is already aware. You get it? In 2017, there was another seal.
Okay.
But that seal is not enough. Now, increasingly, the military gains and gains and gains and gains. Now, when you look at the distribution of power under that constitution, how is that power distributed? The military takes so much. Article 99 talks about the commander-in-chief.
Yes.
He chairs the national Security Committee,
Sure.
National Intelligence Committee,
Sure.
every important asset. The president is the Minister of Finance, de facto. The military spending is classified.
That's true. And every budget. Yeah.
It's the most resourcewise, resourcefully endowed. It has
Part
taken
of the
over
state.
all contracts of government.
And
Even the water you're drinking, everything the military. But you see, when you are reading Uganda, you may think it's just Ugandan context. This is what is
So
called,
the history is important.
in political economy, we call it the military, what we call the finance military complex. Highly theorized within Marxian, Marxist thought by Balan and Sweezy. There was a merger between the industry and the military. The merger between the military and finance. It's not by accident that the military wears green and the dollar is in green. Where the dollar goes, it has to be protected by the military. Whether you're discussing international law, everything, the protection of continental shelves, protection of oil explorations, the military comes the center too. If they want oil in the Middle East, if they want this, the military. So you look, increasingly the military takes a center stage. In Uganda, today, that's where we are. So now, we amended the UPDF Act and its internal restructuring.
That's where I was going.
Internal restructuring. You know, when you hear people say, Sanzo, where does he get this power? When we are going for election, they set up a joint operations.
Yes, we read about
force.
that.
You read about it?
Yes.
Who was the chair of it?
It was the CDF.
And why?
The military.
That joint operations force, it had ministers, Minister of Internal Affairs, Minister of Defense. They are supposed to be part of it.
Wow.
Because you're a Minister of Internal Affairs, Minister of Defense, they are supposed to be part of it. But why can't they be the leaders of it? You know, the reason is very clear.
I think even the AG was part of it.
Yes, but the reason is very clear. The CDF, by law now, is the Deputy Commander-in-Chief.
Okay.
Who chairs that meeting?
Yeah, it's one of the sections that we discussed in the UPDF.
Who is the Commander-in-Chief? The
Commander makes sense now.
Yes, the Commander-in-Chief is the President. But when the Commander-in-Chief is not there, the Deputy Commander-in-Chief stands in for him.
That's true.
Now, the Minister of Internal Affairs, Minister of Defense are not the Deputy Commander-in-Chief.
Wow.
It's the CDF.
Hey. And actually, the CDF is in an election, so you have to pretend that he's unavailable for the Deputy CDF. I mean, for the CDF now, who is the Deputy Commander-in-Chief to work.
When we are negotiating for the release of Aaron Kiza, when convened at Huripec, I was leading part of the team. They set up 3 teams. I was leading one of the teams, lawyers. So I was highly involved at high stakeholder engagement.
On his release. Negotiate for
I learned many things about the Kabaziguruka judgment. For us, we are just looking at a lawyer in prison, but now this is calling into question the entire political consensus of Uganda.
Yes.
Even when Kabaziguruka comes and Owinyi Dolo, who is vindicating himself and saying, I'm going, they reintroduce the UPDF Amendment Act.
Immediately.
Isn't that retrospective legislation?
Of course.
Now lawyers start to continue to discuss law. Even the present Uganda Law Society. I remember when I was supporting Semakade. And as we are moving in this kind of stuff, one of the interviews I gave to NBS, I was saying that, you see, increasingly as Uganda is headed towards, is in a transitional mode. The law is going to become an important platform in the decision of these things. We need a strong Uganda Law Society.
So that's why you were supporting, yes.
And that's how I supported Semakade. When Semakade comes, he also at some point is deluded and not aware of what is at stake.
The realities around his working.
He's in exile.
Let me ask you something on that very point.
In exile.
You've talked
law is gone.
Yes, you've talked about how the law is just a result of this history that we've talked about, specifically orchestrated to fit a certain narrative. You've talked about the transition and the opposition. Gets back to my question. isn't the opposition aware of these realities? And shouldn't the style of opposition be shaped around these conversations and realities?
Now, all the meetings I've sat in, few members are interested in that conversation.
Why?
I remember, even when, obviously, it could have been other reasons, but I remember when I presented a paper before the DF Delegates Conference and I said why there are no elections, they are not participating in this election. I gave that analysis, but obviously, I time and again tell...
Are you pro-boycott?
I don't, and again, that's where I disagree with colleagues. Those who are aware of that analysis I've given, they run towards, so boycott is the way. I tell them no. Again, boycott pushes you to another trap. You can be declared an illegal formation,
treasonous,
and you can end up in prison.
Yes.
You do what you do. Elections are supposed to do one thing: mobilize the citizenry around the questions that you find pertinent, but you're not mobilizing the population for an election per se.
Okay.
Now, how do you do that?
That's in a pseudo dictatorship.
How do you do that? You must be humble and accept it as a reality.
That you're going to participate.
You are going to participate.
But the mission is different.
Is different.
Yes.
And you can, the other thing which is very integral to it is working towards a united force.
I hear you.
I may have disagreements with whatever was happening in Parliament, but I also had very strong arguments with how NUP also handled their fallout.
Issues, yes.
How FDC handled their fallout.
With PFF.
I have a very serious
because they kill the mission of a united front as a conversation towards making meaningful.
I had a conversation with the late Frank Nawiso.
Yes.
Dr. Frank Nawiso. I was doing a study for some civil organization and we were discussing about multipartyism and political alliances. And we had a conversation and they said, okay, and it's the same I can use for FDC, I can use for ANT. Because ANT, some of us were not ready to walk away, but there was a way things were catapulted.
I get you.
So you have a beautiful wife, you have to know one thing. People are going to make advances.
There will be suitors.
There will be suitors. When they are suitors and you've come to know it, how do you handle it?
Do you blame the wife or you attack the suitors?
How you deal with it defines you. Are you ready for this woman? Are you ready for the competition? Because just putting on a ring is not enough. Unfortunately,
it doesn't scare away everyone.
It doesn't. It is just the commitment that I'm with you. So you have to work towards replenishing that. One of the things Dr. Besigye said, you cannot blame your colleagues who have ended up in parliament because you've accepted that we are going the parliament way, participating in elections. When you go in elections, they will need the military. They will need the money. That's how you end up.
Very important.
All these people you elect in parliament, whether it's you who becomes the lead of a leading political opposition party and you elect a LOP, that LOP will end up finding themselves in whichever way.
I want to pick your comments
because
on
they
that,
will need that.
I want to pick your comments on that.
And that's what one of the major things Dr. Besigye said. And I found it as so much wisdom that is laid under the carpet. Now, how they dealt with it, it was critical. Because the disintegration of NUP, internal contradictions affected us in this election. How they handled their relationship with DF and even their relationship with PFF. Even the relationship with PFF.
Yes.
Now, what you've done, increasingly, the military, now these are all civilians. Civilians are continuing to fight. That is what you're calling the opposition.
Stronger.
The military is getting stronger.
Gaining
the civilian, which is supposed to argue for the military, groups that are appearing to be like appealing to them, disgruntled, when they get purged, even the opposition, no one is able to talk for them. The purging is happening, the military is streamlined. Everything has been streamlined.
I hear you. Especially in what has been taking place inside the UPDF. in the last maybe 12, 18 months.
So those who are trying to give a semblance of the military, appearing in their civilian clothes and appearing to be like a military, like drilling and give an impression like, no, don't be like to this military. Even us, when we take over power, we cannot be like the military.
Narrative,
they end up in prison.
Because they are attacking the core of the narrative.
And that core is defined policy-wise through the state. The state becomes the arbiter through the military. Every judicial officer, every judge, that's why you see the young lady who made the decision in Matembe is crying out for help.
It's part of the things that I want you to discuss.
Even after the judgment is going perhaps even to go for a mass and say, pray for me. I don't know whether I will continue to be.
You call your pastor to intercede because you're just going to pass judgment.
The gentleman decides in the Aaron Kiza case and is completely transferred. That was his last decision. Besigye has been on trial for so long because these are very... I
will pause you because you're going to interrupt the decisions that we're going to talk about. But now it brings in, instead of discussing it last, the transition question. In the realities that you're talking about, the history, the current setup of the opposition, the grand master plan of the people who hold power right now.
Yes.
What are we likely to see? And by the way, as you discuss that, in light of there's a Ugandan that does not know everything or anything that we've talked about today, but is interested to say, I'm dissatisfied with how things are going and they should be better. What are we likely to see post-Museveni in terms of the power play in Uganda?
Post-Museveni, the signals have been made. They have been made clear to everyone. But for us who are into political theory, we go back to Carl Schmitt. Carl Schmitt writes an important edict on theory of politics, which is political realism. He was one of the major legal historians of the Nazi regime in Germany. And he writes the 4 chapters on sovereignty. Very important book for any constitutional historian. That's a very important book. He's in a conversation with Hans Kelsen. Hans Kelsen approaches it from a liberal perspective of the grand norm. And the grand norm is everything. And
then everything draws power from the constitution.
And Carl Schmitt says, no, power is not the right.
That's not the reality.
Power, the one who is sovereign, is the one who defines the exception to the rule. The one who suspends the law and defines this exception
is the real power.
Is the real power. Today in Uganda, who defines the exception to the law?
We all know.
He can suspend the rule.
Play around the rule.
So, all this delusion, there is seemingly a clear-cut understanding that increasingly there is person in charge. But that is not enough. There was a symbolism around the swearing in. Where the president is being sworn in, he takes all these instruments, but now a shield emerges.
Someone is holding
and the shield is not coming from the CJ.
No.
It's not coming from,
it's coming from the CDF.
But it's coming from the CDF. And the president is very clear.
In an appearance, he has never appeared in. Yes.
When the president, after demonstrating to the public, he takes it back, the people who are clearing it. He doesn't hand over to his ADs, he hands over the CDF. Now, that symbolism is not light. For some of us, it's not light. Even the recent comments by the president, they are not statements that are read as footnotes.
Yes.
They are actually the definition of the power. Now, the question is, seemingly, the CDF appears like as the new person in town. You remember the tweet when he said, I've taken over power, and then people declared them as fake tweets. That is part of counterintelligence. Of course. It's assessing what is the public size. What is the reaction?
Public,
if it were true, and I don't know whether it was true or not, but if it were true, and seemingly there is a talk show, a podcast done by Kabshenga, and Andrew appeared there.
The native.
And the question was, is he willing? It appears like the CDF, if it was to become a president, would like to govern Uganda in a particular way.
Yeah.
Now the question is Uganda governable in a strictly militant setup? Because after feeding on a dose
for 40 years
of liberal facade,
yes,
for 40 years, where someone, a kid can abuse their parent,
they draw a president
people
in a cartoon and it's okay.
drive in whichever way they drive, and it's okay. Are you not
the society
to
into
switch
a
the society?
Rwanda?
Are you not automatically mobilizing them
to reject
for
you?
resistance? That's a question for them to answer. I don't know. And increasingly, power management is such a complex thing. It draws many quarters. But I don't think the group which is in charge is naive to this. They are perhaps alive to it, but they are also making signals to a particular point, then retreat back to making
measure
compromises.
Yes, I hear you.
You saw the group that was allied to Anita when they lost the election. They lost the election because they are telling them, you have to negotiate, you come back. You have to negotiate with us. All these same Jews, the what, people who have lost elections. You've been here trying to feel arrogant, feel proud just because you have a
Let's remind you that there's...
Let's remind you. Now, when that is taken away, are you ready now to negotiate? It has reached a point where everyone has to negotiate.
I hear you.
We're supposed to have this talk show in that week, but I had to think whether I need to do a talk show. Increasingly, that is the state people
That's
are in.
true. Yeah, I hear you.
Increasingly for the media, there is a report I did for ACME. As we are discussing even the media, it's called Vulnerable Media Struggling Democracy. I did it for African Center for Media
This is
Excellence.
before ACME had issues with...
That is 2000. It was last year.
Okay.
That report, you'll need to discuss it. You'll need to read it and see. I'll send it.
Yeah.
The media is such a vulnerable financial state, extremely poor. They don't have senior journalists in the newsrooms because they are extremely expensive. They are operating under
the adverts are dictated.
Yes.
The state is the biggest seller for adverts, so they dictate who they go to.
Exactly. Now they are operating under a precarious legal regime.
Yes. The most independent are the most financially constrained media houses.
So now that civic space is gone. Then you look at the religious. The religious is gone. You look at the mainstream opposition, the formal opposition, which is the political parties and what have you. The state is not something you can speak of. There is nothing to speak of it. Then you look at the judiciary, which is the protector of it. It has been defined in a particular way. So that even the recruitment of it was overseen by someone who was overseeing the judicial recruitment.
You see, I was telling...
Who was the person overseeing
the
it?
President.
And who was operating it?
In terms of...
Yes, okay, the president.
Yes.
But you see, this is the orientation, which you guys are not paying attention to. The former Attorney General is going back to be a Minister of Defense.
Yes.
The former Minister of Defense is now the Speaker. How much are you guys going to know?
Yes,
that
to ignore the obvious.
This is the reality that the continent, the civil authority has completely lost
the power. And
that is the intention of the Americans as well. Because I don't want to remove them from the picture.
You've set a trap for yourself as we discuss about the transition. Where is the leaning of the external influence, which of course you can't ignore? If you discuss history, right from, leave alone the independence negotiations with the Obotes and the Mutesas, but everyone else, there was an external influence from Tanzania to Kenya to Zambia, South Africa, Libya, America, the CIA,
the Soviet,
the Pinette influence. People just hear about Pinette now without knowing the background. But where are they leaning and what is influencing, whether they are seated on the fence or inside or buying in this narrative that we're talking about?
America's British or European Union influence is to the extent that they protect their interests in the region.
True.
Uganda,
that is the important goal.
Uganda is seated. Uganda sits at the buffer zone of two important places. One is the mineral-rich Zaire, Congo. So it has to be a protective buffer for that. It guarantees security around so that we are able to do whatever we want to do in Congo.
Especially in the Eastern Congo.
The second thing, Uganda sits as a buffer to what you call a space of Islamic space of they created South Sudan as a buffer, but that's not enough because it's not yet stable and strong to the level of Uganda militarily. So it's seated at that. Both Uganda and Kenya have to provide that. And to an extent in the Horn of Africa, so that you don't allow the emergence of some groups. And because Uganda has a history, it's not by accident that when they were in the bush, people were carrying Muslim names, because it becomes very easy to recruit.
I hear
you. So Uganda receives many of these refugees from Sudan, from Somali, from whatever. And many people are extremely poor. It can become a very important recruitment ground for terrorism. So that's why the core interest is that.
And it's protected by the people.
And how does the core interest manifest? You'll find that Uganda's military is largely funded by these external forces.
True.
And yet the very forces, through NGOs, fund the political opposition. But what ends up in the NGOs for political opposition? They are mere drops.
Of course.
So that tells
the story.
And it's because the international consensus is military industrial complex. Military finance alliance is such a big thing. I don't expect that if you want to cause political change, that is which leads to social justice, resource redistribution, you have to rely on international support. International support may be from forces that are aligned to your thinking, like the left, or if you are left,
or
the right, depending on whichever side you take, whichever orientation you take. But that's how I'm reading it.
I get you.
Because they have whatever it takes. They can, if they want President Museveni out of power tomorrow, they can get him out of power. Because whatever military he uses, they are the funders of it. By the mere fact that he's still around, they are still endorsing.
I get you.
The rest is just public relations.
Okay, let's switch guns to now what one of the biggest discussions has been the debate on whether this anti-corruption crusade is pure or it's just political fights. And that is in charge of, like, we had over 8 former parliamentary staff that was charged with the embezzlement of over 36 billion. Something that had been discussed with Agora, with different people. The Chris Obore is at 5.2 billion, Adiro Daniel 14.6, Okema Leon at 3.4, Rajab 2. We can go on, Okwi, Matembe, and Stella. Now, the debate from one side is saying, yes, hey, what we've been complaining about, someone is coming to fight it. But the other side is, how come they are touching someone, not touching the other? How come that there's consistent touching of people who are aligned to someone that has already been put out of action? I just want to pick your thoughts on that in a few minutes before we switch.
Because many Ugandans, because of their beef with Andrew Mwenda, they don't take Andrew Mwenda, what Andrew Mwenda says serious, and yet it's very serious. Dismissive. Andrew has repeatedly said the Anita thing is more about the power she was gaining and the influence she was.
Not corruption.
And this is very critical. And this is not because I agree with what Anita was doing or what some of my colleagues were doing, because some of those guys who are my colleagues. They are people I call friends. I would call friends or meet and talk. A gentleman like Leonard Okema, I knew him way back. Chris, the same story.
Journalist.
Person like Semalulu, Rajab Kaya.
Yes.
I know him from our opposition days. So, but these were just cogs, mere cogs, mere support system around it. So when you end up in that process, you end up as also victims, as part of the collateral damage.
I hear you.
Because in the process, the first collateral is taken. Because Anita is also collateral.
Yeah,
When
but the bigger collateral.
when Museveni wants to manage parliament, Anita becomes the conduit.
True.
Is the one who is facilitating the whole process. Increasingly the last 5 years, as we've heard also from Mwenda,
Captured, yes.
as we've heard from Mwenda,
There was no more headache from Parliament,
Parliament.
by the hands of Anita Among.
that is an admission. But we are worried. Anita is smart. And I don't know why people are looking. When people were saying that Anita is a
finished.
villager, the way she was displayed. I mean,
They don't know.
how do you display power? People display influence through intellect and speech. Others display it through acts. Now, Anita was not a good orator, but if she manifests this money
Through the second arm, yes.
yes, by showing off, and
display,
you remember
yes.
those guys at high school,
Yeah.
the guys who had money, but they were bad performers in class. But a guy who
Break
would
time,
come
you
and
would
break
know.
time and what
Yeah.
they carried some influence, and you would not just ignore them in the equation. So Anita increasingly was taking that, but also Anita, who's advised that the political culture of Uganda is increasingly dictated by money, becomes a major threat. And the money, which is helping her to shape even security. Because I'm told, I've heard that she was having reasonable control over some security.
Yeah,
That's,
apparatus, yes.
that's what I hear.
Yeah.
Based
One of the
on
rumors
what-
that came out, yes.
all the rumors that were coming out. And so becomes a de facto challenger of the intra-contradiction within the NRA. So in case you are calling for Parliament to vote a president, and she puts her name there, she would automatically
Yeah, it'd be a big challenge.
a big challenge. Right now,
Is it why the discussion has been now
right
shown?
now in the NRM, there is no direct challenge to the CDF in case he puts his name on paper to be a president of Uganda. The only seemingly, this person who would seemingly emerge as a challenger still has to come from the house, and he will not gain the support of this gentleman.
I hear you. And
Yeah.
that's the gentleman that did a 1 hour YouTube thing recently, right?
Yes.
One of the, yes.
I don't want to discuss people's names.
I get you. That's why I'm just using just a narrative to
Yes.
give our viewers context.
Yeah.
But one of the other things that has come out in this era, and in light of what you are discussing, is the usage of court and the judiciary as a tool.
Yeah.
In one of the narratives that we've coined of the judiciary on trial, in light of we have political prisoners now that are negotiating.
I'm representing a young man called Eman Womuhezo who was shot in the back, and he has been with bullets in the spine.
In the spine,
rotting.
no help,
And this,
no nothing.
This boy was just a vendor near
You can
Hoka,
imagine.
who was selling things of Noop. Arrested in 2001. There are some disappeared. Human Rights Commission.
With its
We
own
filed these
internal
complaints. They never decided them in the court. Nothing. I know people
Frustrating.
are frustrated.
So
I know
how
political
does
prisoners,
this end?
the
Because
fate of political prisoners.
sometimes you look at, I think you saw like Justice Baguma's narrative on the Besigye's bail. After Besigye complaining, we've had, there's that notable note that you talked about of the Matembe G1, describing as captured, as helpless, talking about the influence from which we assumed to be the state. How dangerous is this for a society?
For our society.
Even
now,
if a change
now
comes?
let me tell you, you and me are liberal, and we are discussing. No, I'm not liberal in the sense of liberal
in the school of thought.
In the school of thought, but we are very sympathetic. But in political realism, it's a different
reality.
story. That is part of the opportunity cost. Because you exert force and pain.
Remind the
And
people
it
that you're the
becomes-
one.
And it becomes the definition of power. The one who is able to do that becomes the power. And unfortunately, you cannot organize without disorganizing. You cannot make a piece of shirt without cutting.
I hear you. Different pieces.
And that's what is going on.
I hear you.
We just pray that me and you don't become victims of that.
The piece that is cut and
of the
thrown
cut
away.
that is, yes. And increasingly, that is unfortunately the fate.
Of most
So
of the
all arrests have not happened, my brother. Arrests are going to happen. You see, Balaam is reorganizing the local government structure. But reorganize it, he has to move with people. So arrests that are going to happen even at the countryside, just being told that this one is the chaotic person. But they are basically reorganizing. You come back and renegotiate. You come and talk. You think before these gentlemen were arrested, the Chris's and what have you, do you know how much negotiation has happened?
I can imagine.
How many road trips have been made between Kampala and Kapeka?
Yes.
How many road trips? Households are making those road trips. But increasingly, the source of power is being seen. The source of power is being seen.
I hear you.
Even those who have been holding some level of power within the system,
the real power is
the real power is increasingly taking shape. Look at all the projects that when I was talking about to be audited. Who has been the person behind some of these projects?
Of course. That's CDF, it's known.
No.
Even the uncle.
No. Mwenda is speaking through the CDF because this is PLU. You want to dismantle PLU, Mwenda and him was, but you are making a mistake.
I hear you.
When he's speaking and says, no, some of these people around the president are taking advantage of him
and his old age.
The people around the president who have been benefiting from investment projects, who are they? After crystallizing and concretizing who they are, ask what are their interests in the transitional agenda.
I hear you.
And what positions do they occupy? Can we mention some of the names? You mentioned.
I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. So now the power framework is being reshaped, is reforming and taking shape. So many people are going to end up as damaged. They are going to end up in prison at a stage. If they take the route that is not business as usual, some people will be publicly prosecuted.
That's
publicly executed.
That's the direction that we are seeing.
If it requires that.
I get you.
Because that is increasingly what I'm reading. From my political theory background.
I get you, yes. Things that make sense and how the stories usually end.
If Kakaire, you make so much noise for us, and we have some incriminating stuff on you, we can give you, you put in as collateral damage. Increasingly.
I get you.
So when people, you call them for even these talk shows and
then
they say, please,
we already
I'm not available,
that,
please this and this.
Understand where they are coming
Understand
from.
where they're coming from.
I get you.
Increasingly. Understand that things are not normal.
As we head towards the end.
But even those who are sprinting over this process, they want also to hear voices like us.
Yeah.
Because what this whole talk is doing, it may making people aware of what is going on, but it's also increasing. It also reshapes them into fear. The unfortunate bit of it.
I get you.
Because when they get to know this reality, they say, "Oh, this guy is telling us the truth. This is the reality." So the reality is interpreted differently. There are those now who start to think of it and say, "Okay, we have to push. This is the reality. We have to push." Then there are those who say, now I will not do this. I will not do that.
I can't go that far. The risk is higher.
Yeah.
Related to that is the closure of NMG outlets in terms of NTV and Dembe and KFM.
We close it, and you get new leadership to renegotiate. There is already new ownership in town. You see,
aren't you agreeing with quote in quotes the rapist?
No, I'm not agreeing with the rapist.
You.
I'm telling you the rapist, what the rapist mission is up to. It's a bad thing to
But
close.
how you handle?
But who is NMG? It's Aga Khan. Who is Aga Khan? This is Bujagali project. This is Rubowa. This is what? There's many projects.
Even if you say, even the gentleman they sold to some shares is a bigger entrepreneur that has interest in Tanzania and in Uganda.
Yes, exactly. So Aga Khan will not make noise. Will not make noise.
But then how come they have been following that script?
Because it is just their tool they also use as a leverage to negotiate with the government here.
For the other interests?
For the other interests. But now, for we who believe in freedom, who want freedom of speech, by my definition of speech, I'm not naive. I'm not naive to say this is the protector of the freedom. The freedom of speech must be defined in a very egalitarian sense. Freedom is not because NTV has freedom. Freedom of speech is because a Karamajong in Karamoja can speak, is because Harold here can speak, is freedom that is also vertical, that can be reflected in all spheres. But the point I was making about the closure of Monitor, before you ask whether it's a bad thing or a good thing, you ask why have they closed? They have closed because there is a renegotiation of power.
Which part one has already taken place, yes.
The ownership of Monitor is going to clear all the weeds that the system has defined as weeds.
Yes.
You get it? How
the obvious
ironic.
way.
How ironic. Then, so that this whole window dressing goes away. Because when you have a civil society and people are operating in civil society, people are operating in media houses,
NGOs
and claiming to say, for us, let's clear things. Those who are believing in particular values to be reflected in society, they continue to operate in that mode, that circus. I wrote my thesis, my master's thesis, and I made a conclusion that in a hybrid regime, the media freedom is inextricably linked to the broader struggles for democracy.
Perfect. I agree.
So journalists, we want to see them on the front line. We want to see people in the civil society who have been closed, whose tabs have been closed. And for those who are doing it, they are setting themselves for a boomerang because those were release points. This person who is getting 4 million shillings every month, $1,000, $2,000 as a CEO of an organization, of an NGO. When you close those NGOs, when you close their funding, they end up in political parties to organize.
That's true.
Me who believes in some level of organization, revolutionary organization, it helps me. You, it doesn't.
I hear
you who is closing them.
The former CEO of an NGO, the other side no longer receives.
These journalists who have been operating freely, they write about the shortcomings of the regime and treating them as shortcomings, and they go draw a salary from their account.
They are okay. They can go home and sleep. But now you close that tap, you have made them radical.
This report, you read them together with my thesis, you come to a conclusion of where we are headed.
Finally, your comments on the Besigye trial and its flow, and then we can close the show today.
The Besigye trial increasingly, and that is the problem, it was defined in that very equation of political transition, because Besigye had increasingly become a very important critique of what is under, what is ongoing, the ongoing process. He became the first victim of it.
Wow.
Became the first victim of it. And
how is it likely to end?
How it's end is to end, it will depend on a willingness of President Museveni to forgive him, or even the CDF to say, let go. Let go until it's okay. I don't think it's the law.
Of course.
Because it's never the law. It's never the law.
Parting shots?
But the other thing which I've seen is a resigned population. That's the worst of
helpless.
it. I mean, it's the worst thing. Helpless. It's not helpless because I don't think government has capacity to deal with 40 million people when they rise up. It doesn't have the capacity. But it has wired the thinking that creates that thinking. And people,
bakole bye baagala.
buli omu ali mu bibye.
Yeah.
So long as we release off in the last 3 days of the week, starting from Friday, Saturday,
Drink
Sunday,
co-
you're watching football as a
Football,
release
World
point,
Cup,
as escape. We treat
Go
them
to
as
club and dance around,
escape
yes,
points. So everything. My parting shot is that let's pray for each other. I don't lose that spiritual element.
Yeah,
that it's
very
only
important.
it's only God who can save us from this situation, particularly in letting those who are doing whichever they are doing to do it in such a manner that does not cause so much havoc, harm, and staying and make these things stay for so long, because the stories are not forgotten.
I get you.
The symbolism around the Katikiro visiting Elias Lukwago's home, it's not a small thing.
I hear you.
And that symbolism, which is followed by important dignitaries visiting Bulange,
Yeah.
it's not a small thing. You get it?
Yes, I get you.
Those are not small things. It's a reminder of how power has been negotiated in Uganda.
Part of our
But I'm also not saying that Mengo is this kind of powerful to government, because it's not.
but it's a very
It's
important
allowed to be,
aspect
but
of
it's
the
a very
conversation.
important reminder
Yes.
that we are managing. We sit on a shock absorber,
Yeah.
because the kingdom Mengo establishment is the shock absorber of the Buganda formation. The Baganda, the people who believe,
Who dwell
in the
even here,
Buganda.
yes.
Exactly.
I get you.
So these are shock absorbers. But when they do whatever they do, because they also continue to be who they are, if they continue to manage that PR, because it's performance. It's performance for Katikiro Maiga, Weshtiwa, Katikiro going to visit Lukwago's home. It's performance, trying to remind people that, okay, we didn't just keep quiet, we did ABC. But
Even in his speech in the budget reading for Uganda, it was mentioned, yes.
those things are very critical.
Yeah.
Now, we pray to God, and we should also be active. Unfortunately, the voices are dwindling. The voices are going down. The voices are getting shuttered.
Fear is taking over.
And it's because of one thing that some of us had reached a point where we would not be interested in these debates, because you had to first of all be a mainstream, either NUP or whatever political party, to make your voice
just
heard.
make, yes.
Unfortunately, that didn't happen. But you see,
This is why we created this.
by the time Katikiro comes now to play that role, counterintelligence had spent almost 3 years discrediting him. It was discrediting him for this moment.
Because they knew eventually there will be.
To lose legitimacy
Yes.
in his own population, not be able to command anything.
I get you. Because they know that the command could have an effect
Across the board.
across the board. Yes,
Across
I
the
hear
board. But that's the only thing I can say, that also appealing to the rationality of some people around whichever forces are deciding, to be the rational voices in the room, to champion for fairness. That you see, you don't want to see Lukwago in the state he is in. You don't want to see some of these young
A
men
repeat
and
of
women
Segirinya
who have been in prison for over 6 years. When they come out, who are they going to become? These are the very people who can become extremely radicalized, and I don't.
Dangerous society
Yeah.
that you created. Thank you very much for making the time.
I hope I made.
Please, it was
I
a very
made,
perfect conversation that the nation needs. I hope when you watch it, you will reshare, you will share it with your friends, you will subscribe, so that it's these conversations that will help.
I'm already subscribed, Checkmate.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's these conversations that help shape the nation. We don't do this for anyone. We do this for God, for our country, because it's at the core mission of why we live, why we exist, that our children shall grow up in a better setting than we did or what we are witnessing, that it's not just there's a Runyankode saying that a stubborn fly follows the coffin to the grave, that we just don't follow the smell, until we are buried with it, that we do something about it. So thank you very much for watching, and until the next episode, we are out. Subscribe, share, leave a comment, because your comments matter and you become part of the conversations. It is your thing as much as it is our thing. Thank you very much.
So if you love what we're doing here, why not be part of the making by helping us grow what we believe is the most insightful podcast in Uganda? Subscribe, hit the bell, and share this video everywhere. For your support will keep us growing.